The auditorium at Stanford Business School was packed with proud families, their faces beaming as they watched their children receive MBA degrees that represented 2 years of intensive study and six-figure investments in education. I sat in the third row, adjusting my cap and gown, glancing occasionally at the section where families gathered to take photos and celebrate achievements. My section remained conspicuously empty. The seats I'd reserved for my parents and siblings sat vacant, a physical reminder that my family had chosen not to attend what they considered a meaningless ceremony for a degree they thought would never amount to anything practical. Mom had been blunt when I'd sent the invitation 3 weeks earlier. "We're too busy with real priorities to sit through another one of your academic fantasies." Dad had been even more direct. "An MBA from Stanford? That's just more debt for a piece of paper that won't help you get a real job. Your brother Daniel is expanding his auto repair business, and your sister Lisa just got promoted to regional sales manager. They're building actual careers while you're still playing student." My family had always measured success in traditional, tangible terms. Daniel owned 3 auto repair shops across the county and employed 12 mechanics. Lisa had worked her way up from entry-level sales to regional management at a pharmaceutical company, overseeing a team of 40 representatives. They bought houses, made car payments, sent their kids to good schools, and contributed to retirement accounts. They understood success they could see and touch. What they couldn't understand was why their youngest daughter had spent the past 6 years pursuing impractical degrees while running what they assumed was a failing tech startup from her tiny apartment. They saw the long hours, the modest lifestyle, the constant focus on computers and code, and concluded that I was wasting my potential on unrealistic dreams. "Emma Chin," the dean announced, and I walked across the stage alone. I accepted my diploma with a smile, shook hands with the faculty, and posed for the official photographer. Around me, other graduates were immediately surrounded by cheering families, but I returned to my seat solo and watched the rest of the ceremony with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had accomplished something meaningful, even if nobody I cared about was there to witness it. After the ceremony, I fielded congratulatory calls from classmates' families who had seen me walk alone and wanted to make sure I felt celebrated. Their kindness was touching, but it also highlighted the absence I was trying not to think about. That evening, I returned to my small apartment in Palo Alto, the same modest space my family assumed was evidence of my continued financial struggles. The rent was reasonable by Silicon Valley standards, the furniture was basic, and my car was a 3-year-old Honda Civic that I'd bought used. To anyone looking from the outside, I appeared to be another struggling entrepreneur living paycheck to paycheck while chasing an impossible dream. The reality was considerably different. Hidden behind the bedroom's false wall was a sophisticated command center equipped with multiple monitors, high-end servers, and communication systems that connected me to data centers across 3 continents. This was the real headquarters of Quantum Solutions, the artificial intelligence company I'd founded during my sophomore year at Stanford and had been building quietly for the past 4 years. What my family saw as a failing tech startup was actually a revolutionary AI platform that had attracted partnerships with major corporations, government agencies, and research institutions around the world. We developed machine learning algorithms that could process and analyze data at speeds that were transforming entire industries, from financial modeling to medical research to predictive logistics. I pulled up the company's dashboard on my secure system. Current valuation, $4.2 billion. Active contracts, $847 million. Employees, 312 across 7 countries. Patents filed, 127. Patents approved, 89. Quantum Solutions had achieved in 4 years what most tech companies spent decades trying to build. We weren't just profitable. We were reshaping how artificial intelligence integrated with human decision-making across multiple sectors. But maintaining anonymity had been crucial for both security and strategic reasons. The AI space was intensely competitive, with major corporations and foreign governments constantly attempting to acquire or steal breakthrough technologies. By operating under the radar, using shell companies and proxy agreements, we'd been able to develop our platform without attracting the kind of attention that could compromise our research or limit our flexibility. My family's assumption that I was failing had actually provided perfect cover for building something extraordinary. My phone buzzed with a text from my CTO, David Kim. "Forbes photographer wants to schedule the cover shoot for next week. Are you ready for this level of visibility?" The Forbes 30 Under 30 feature had been unavoidable. Our company's success had reached a point where continued anonymity was becoming impossible, and several business publications had been investigating the mysterious AI startup that was quietly disrupting multiple industries. Rather than let others control the narrative, we decided to reveal my identity and Quantum Solutions' achievements on our own terms. Schedule it for Tuesday afternoon, I replied. And David? Make sure the article emphasizes our team's collaborative achievements, not just individual recognition. Already handled. The piece focuses on how Quantum Solutions is democratizing AI technology while maintaining ethical development standards. The next morning I received my weekly call from Lisa. She'd made it a habit to check in every Sunday, ostensibly to see how I was doing but primarily to offer unsolicited advice about my career choices and lifestyle decisions. How was graduation? She asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. It was fine. I got my degree. And what's next? Are you finally going to look for a real job, or are you still playing around with that computer thing? The computer thing. If only she knew that the computer thing had generated more revenue in the past year than her pharmaceutical company's entire regional division. I'm going to keep working on the business for now, I said. Emma, sweetie, I say this because I love you. It's time to be realistic. You've been working on this startup for 4 years and you're still living in that tiny apartment, driving that old car, wearing the same clothes from college. Meanwhile, Daniel just bought a second house as an investment property, and I'm looking at vacation homes in Florida. I'm happy for both of you, I said, meaning it genuinely. But don't you want those things too? Security, stability, a real income? I could probably get you an interview with my company. The pay isn't amazing to start, but it's steady work with benefits and you could build from there. Lisa's offer was genuine and came from a place of love, which made it both touching and frustrating. She was willing to use her professional connections to help her struggling sister, not knowing that I was already operating at a level far beyond anything her company could offer. I appreciate that, I said. But I think I'm going to stick with what I'm doing. Your choice, but just remember, you can't live on hope forever. At some point you need to face reality. After ending the call, I drove to Quantum Solutions' actual headquarters, a nondescript building in Mountain View that housed our primary development teams and client services operations. The space looked like any other Silicon Valley office complex from the outside, but inside, it was a hub of innovation that was reshaping the technological landscape. Morning, Emma, said Sarah Martinez, our head of business development, as I walked through the main workspace. The government contract renewals came through, $340 million over 3 years. And the European expansion is ahead of schedule. I nodded, reviewing the weekend's progress reports on my tablet. Our AI platform was now processing data for 12 different government agencies, 47 major corporations, and over 300 smaller businesses. The technology we developed was becoming infrastructure-level critical for organizations that depended on complex data analysis and predictive modeling. Any word from Forbes about the publication timeline? I asked. They're planning to release the digital version Monday morning, with the print edition hitting newsstands Wednesday. Their PR team thinks it could be one of their most shared articles of the year, given the mystery around Quantum Solutions' leadership. Monday morning came faster than I'd expected. I was in the office early, reviewing quarterly projections with our financial team, when Sarah burst into the conference room with her laptop. It's live, she said, turning the screen toward me. There was my face on Forbes.com, above a headline that read, "The 29-year-old CEO who built a $4.2 billion AI empire in secret." The article detailed Quantum Solutions' achievements, my background, and our company's revolutionary impact on artificial intelligence applications across multiple industries. Within an hour, the story had been shared thousands of times across social media. Tech blogs picked up the coverage, adding their own analysis of how a company could grow to multi-billion-dollar valuations while remaining virtually unknown to the general public. Business news networks began calling for interviews. My phone started ringing at 10:47 a.m. The first call was from Mom. Emma. Her voice was confused, almost questioning, as if she wasn't sure she dialed the right number. I just saw. Someone sent me a link to an article. It says you're the CEO of a billion-dollar company? That's correct, I said calmly. But how is that possible? You're living in that tiny apartment, driving that old car. We thought your business was failing. My business has been quite successful. I just maintained a modest lifestyle while focusing on growth and development. There was a long pause. Emma, this article says your company is worth over $4 billion. The current valuation is $4.2 billion, yes. Another pause, longer this time. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked what I was actually building. You assumed it was failing and focused on trying to convince me to give up and find a real job. Before Mom could respond, my call waiting beeped. It was Daniel. I need to take this, I told Mom. We'll talk soon. Emma. Daniel's voice was excited and slightly panicked. What the hell is going on? Lisa just called me screaming about some Forbes article that says you're running a billion-dollar tech company. I am running a billion-dollar tech company, I said. But you're always talking about being busy with your startup, and we thought. I mean, you live like you don't have any money. I live modestly because I've been reinvesting everything back into the business. It's allowed us to grow without external investors or debt financing. Emma, this is insane. The article says you have over 300 employees and contracts with the government. How did we not know about this? Because you never asked for details about what I was actually doing. You saw my lifestyle and assumed it reflected my business success, rather than my strategic choices. Over the next 3 hours, I received calls from every member of my extended family. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly interested in my work. Aunts and uncles who had dismissed my career choices were calling to congratulate me on my sudden success. But the most difficult call came from Dad. Emma, I owe you an apology, he said, his voice heavy with regret. We missed your graduation because we thought it was a waste of time. We've been treating you like you were failing when you were building something incredible. I understand why you made those assumptions, I said. My lifestyle choices were deliberately misleading. But why? Why let us worry about you, offer you money, try to convince you to change careers? Why let us think you needed our help when you were already more successful than any of us? It was a fair question, one I'd been anticipating since agreeing to the Forbes feature. Because your assumptions protected me, I said. The AI industry is incredibly competitive and sometimes dangerous. Companies and governments spend billions trying to acquire or steal breakthrough technologies. By appearing to be a struggling entrepreneur, I could develop our platform without attracting the wrong kind of attention. So our lack of faith in you was actually helpful? In a way, yes. Your belief that I was failing meant you never looked closely enough to accidentally compromise what I was building. Dad was quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to process this. My daughter is one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country, and I spent 4 years trying to talk her out of pursuing her dreams. You were trying to protect me from what you saw as inevitable disappointment. Your intentions came from love. But our execution was terrible. That evening, I agreed to meet my family for dinner at the same restaurant where we'd held our last family gathering 6 months earlier. The occasion when Dad had presented me with job listings for administrative positions and Mom had suggested I consider community college courses in practical skills like bookkeeping or medical billing. The atmosphere was dramatically different this time. Dad stood when I arrived, something he'd never done before. Mom hugged me like she was seeing me for the first time. Daniel and Lisa looked at me with a mixture of awe and confusion, as if trying to reconcile the sister they thought they knew with the person described in the Forbes article. I still can't believe this, Lisa said as we sat down. Emma, the article says your company processes data for government agencies and major corporations around the world. That's correct. And that you have patents on artificial intelligence technologies that are revolutionizing multiple industries. Also correct. Daniel shook his head slowly. I keep thinking about all the times I offered to give you a job at one of my shops. I was trying to help my little sister who I thought was struggling, and you were running a company worth more than everything our entire family has ever earned combined. Your offers came from kindness, I said. I appreciated them even when I couldn't accept them. Mom was staring at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Emma, if your company is worth billions of dollars, why are you still living in that tiny apartment? Why drive that old car? Why live like someone who doesn't have money? I finished. Because maintaining that appearance has been strategically valuable. And because I believe in living below my means regardless of income level. But don't you want nice things? A big house, luxury cars, vacations. I want security, freedom, and the ability to build something meaningful. Those things don't require expensive displays of wealth. Dad leaned forward. Emma, I need to ask you something directly. When we didn't come to your graduation, when we said we were too busy with real priorities, how did that make you feel? I considered the question carefully. It hurt, I said honestly. But it also confirmed something I'd suspected for a long time, that you were more invested in the version of me that existed in your minds than in discovering who I actually was. The table fell silent. We failed you, Mom said quietly. We were so focused on what we thought you should be doing that we never bothered to understand what you were actually accomplishing. You weren't trying to fail me, I said. You were trying to protect me based on incomplete information. Lisa looked up from her phone, where she'd been reading more articles about quantum solutions. Emma, it says here that you're being compared to the founders of major tech companies. That your AI platform could transform entire industries. That's the goal. And you built this while we were telling you to get a real job. I built this while you were encouraging me to find stability and security. In your minds, you were giving good advice. Daniel laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Good advice. We were giving career advice to someone who had already built one of the most successful tech companies in the world. Over the next 2 hours, we had the most honest conversation our family had experienced in years. I explained the technical aspects of what quantum solutions did, the strategic decisions that had driven our growth, and the reasons I'd maintained anonymity for so long. My family, in turn, acknowledged how their assumptions had prevented them from seeing what was actually happening in my life. They apologized for missing graduation, for dismissing my work, for treating me like a failure when I was building something extraordinary. What happens now? Dad asked as we prepared to leave. Does this change everything? It changes some things, I said. The Forbes article means quantum solutions will get more attention, which brings both opportunities and challenges. But fundamentally, we'll keep doing what we've been doing, building technology that solves real problems for real people. And what about us? Mom asked. What about our relationship? That depends on whether you're interested in knowing who I actually am rather than who you think I should be. 3 months later, my family was in the audience for my keynote speech at the Global Technology Summit in San Francisco. I looked out at the crowd of industry leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs, then found my parents' faces in the third row. They'd done their homework this time. Dad had spent weeks reading about artificial intelligence and machine learning so he could better understand my work. Mom had researched the tech industry to learn about the challenges and opportunities facing companies like mine. Daniel and Lisa had both visited our headquarters and met key members of our team. For the first time in my adult life, my family was genuinely interested in what I was actually doing, rather than what they thought I should be doing. 18 months ago, I told the audience, most people didn't know quantum solutions existed. Today, our AI platform processes critical data for organizations around the world, helping them make better decisions and solve complex problems. I paused, looking at my family again. But the most important lesson I've learned isn't about technology or business strategy. It's about the difference between being seen and being understood. Success isn't just about building something valuable. It's about having people in your life who are willing to look beyond their assumptions to discover who you really are. After the speech, my family joined me backstage. Dad shook my hand with the respect he'd show to any other successful entrepreneur, but then pulled me into a hug with the love reserved for his daughter. I'm proud of what you've built, he said. But more than that, I'm sorry it took us so long to really see you. You're seeing me now, I replied. That's what matters. Mom smiled, tears in her eyes. Next time you have an important event, we'll be there. Front row, cheering loudly and actually understanding what we're celebrating. My family had spent years telling me what my future should look like, never bothering to discover what I was actually building in the present. Now they knew the difference between assumptions and reality. And so did I.